Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Olena Berezovska, and today we have a podcast with a guest from Australia. It's 14 hours apart, but we are talking the same time, which is interesting. From Melbourne, and it's Brad Desmond. He's a quite known psychologist, award-winning psychologist, and also he specializes in business psychology and coaching, like small business and corporate businesses, and spent more than 20 years doing this. Also, he's a writer of a very interesting book, The Matilda Principle. And when I read first, I was so excited to find out like your point of view and using the Matilda philosophy and psychology of little girl in your description of the principles. And I think it's fascinating. We're going to talk about this. Also, Brad is he's a part of a committee on psychology, positivepsychology.com, right? And also he used his psychological knowledge and in a sports psychology. He's passionate about performance coaching and sports psychology, and he is recognized by Kobe Osaka International as a black belt in Shukokai karate. And it's kind of really interesting. Okay, so welcome, Brad, for this podcast. I appreciate that you joined from Melbourne, like many thousand miles apart, because I'm in Toronto. We have late evening, and you in Australia having early morning, but still we can talk, and I am very happy that you joined this podcast. Welcome.
It was good of you to stay up late, and I'm happy to get up early and have some coffee.
Well, I have some water because I wouldn't sleep if I have coffee. I usually have coffee in the morning and then in the afternoon.
I think water's more healthy.
Yeah, water is more healthy. This my husband says, but I'm like coffee anyway.
You're the doctor, but he tells you what's healthy. That's funny.
Well, we have some news, like clinical news, which is research news, which is says the coffee is not so bad if you don't take it too much. That means if it's like moderate amount of coffee, and you would be surprised. We'll talk about the topic we're supposed to talk, but you would be surprised about coffee. When I was working on women's health, writing some books, and I found getting question, can I have coffee when I'm planning a pregnancy, etc., etc. I found some clinical research, probably already like 12, 15 years old, but they were talking that if you take 15 cups of dark, strong coffee per day, then it might have some contraceptive effect. Not like good one, but in some way can prevent from getting pregnant fast. And I was laughing because I said, who's going to have sex after 15 cups of strong coffee? so it's about coffee. I know it's kind of joke, but it's like my thinking, and I think I'm right. Anyway, so we're going to talk about your book. First of all, I want to start from your book because it's really interesting. I was reading this book. I didn't finish, but I was reading, and then first when I read this Matilda Principle, I was thinking, who is Matilda? What is Matilda? Like, I'm thinking, who is Matilda? And then I realized that you used Matilda, the girl, because I started reading, right? And then actually, I know this movie. It's from 1994, I guess. Very famous, iconic American movie, and book as well. The book was, I guess, in 1986. But anyway, I remember this movie because it was on TV every year, every Christmas, and even like, any other season. So I probably saw on TV 100 times. It doesn't mean that I was watching 100 times, but it was so popular. And Matilda was iconic, a talented girl, right, that went through a lot of difficulties in her life, tried to be who she is, right, and dealing with kind of strange family and other people. And that's why I realized that you wrote a book about this, like coaching, about how to build a strong team, especially in a negative psychologically or difficult environment. And that's we start because I want you to tell more about this principle and what you took from the book, from character of Matilda, and put in your book on positive psychology and I would say business psychology.
I was drawn to the children's story. Everybody knows the movie, as you said. Matilda is a little girl in very difficult circumstances. A dysfunctional family is trying to destroy her all the time and deny her the opportunity to learn. And when she's finally allowed to go to school, the school is like a prison. The school is even worse than the family. And you would think that with her school life and her home life are both trying to stifle her growth. Nonetheless, she flourishes. Mm-hmm. Talk about positive psychology is the science of human flourishing. Well, what is the element that enables her to grow, develop, and of course in the story she develops her magical powers and so on. And the element that enables that in her life is her wonderful class teacher, Miss Honey, who has a one-on-one relationship with her students where she has their back, she takes an interest in their growth, she creates a safe haven for them in the classroom. And what interests me is the safe haven she creates is not one of walls or bricks. It's one of emotional intelligence. It's one of psychological safety, which we talk a lot about these days. So looking at that story and then looking at the real world of business and some of the research that the Gallup organization has done, when you survey workers, when you survey business teams, the one element that predicts how productive a team will be or how loyal individual staff are is the relationship they have with their immediate supervisor. Mm-hmm. If you like your boss, you'll be productive, you'll be loyal, you'll be engaged, you'll report high-level job satisfaction, all the things we look for are best predicted by that one simple element, a positive relationship with your immediate boss. So the next question becomes, how do you become such a leader? How do you become such a boss that you can create this positive team where people want to work for you? So that's the inspiration for the book.
Wonderful. And as I see, you actually have a couple chapters in a book when you talk about, let's say, relationship and attitude, people who come to work for someone, come into the team, let's say this way, and how they are engaged. And okay, we don't have entire team engaged in their efforts and work that's supposed to do. At the same time, you're talking about bosses, like, how to be a good boss, how to treat your team, and many other negative sides of dealing with people. And honestly speaking, we spend working for someone or for some organization, or doesn't matter, working and making money, even if we are bosses, if we have team, probably one said maybe even more like time of our life in general. Even if we adults, it's like usually like 8 hours per day at least, right? 40 hours per week, sometimes more, depends on our job and how much we put efforts in our job, right? And that's why we cannot ignore that relationship with other people outside of our family, outside of our closest friends and other people whom we trust and love. It's with those people like strangers for us. And that's you. I think that was wonderful that you separated some parts of working in like doing the job, like working somewhere as a team, as a member of the team, or as a boss. And then you emphasize this negative parts of negative sides of this work and how we can deal as workers and how we can deal as bosses and create healthy environment, not healthier, I would say, not necessarily completely healthy and positive because it depends on people, right? And let's talk
How
about
much time do we spend at work? 40 hours is about average for some people.
it's average, yeah.
We
Yes.
talk about a 4-day week sometimes, but it doesn't happen very often. We talk about work-life balance, but that just means that emails and text messages spill over into our weekend. So if we don't look at the world of work, then you don't have well-being. We can talk about positive psychology and gratitude exercises. How do you take that into the world where you spend more time with work colleagues than you spend at home with loved ones? So that's where we need to look.
And it's interesting that if we talk, the job never leaves us. Even if we spend, let's say, 40 hours at job, we coming home, and we share our negative thoughts, what happened at work, with home, with closest people or family member. So we never leave the job, and we upset and we concentrated on some kind of problems we have at job. Because I remember myself, I wanted to do everything nice and on time. I was a quite organized person. And when my work was related to some other people's work and they were kind of not organized, sometimes I couldn't do the job I supposed to do on time just because those people just were ignorant or they were lazy. And you know how much at the beginning when I got the job, oh my goodness, I was worried that I can lose just because I couldn't do my job properly because I depended on other people. And that negative experience, and also, like you said, negative psychological environment. So let's talk a little bit about this negative psychological environment, or any, bad environment, like you said, or toxic environment. So let's talk how we should react. What should we do? What can we do to be adjusted to job and don't be affected by this negativity?
Because what burnout in the workplace is very real.
Yeah.
And if you don't like your work, then you're not enjoying your weekend either. Because a lot of people spend Saturday and Sunday dreading the fact that Monday is coming around again. And that's not a balanced life. Work-life balance is a lovely phrase, but it's really like saying that I've got one hand in the freezer and another hand on the fire, and on average, I'm balanced. Well, people don't work that way. So if you're burning out, if you're feeling stressed or depressed about your work, it's impacting every part of your life, not just Monday to Friday. So yeah, we do need to take it seriously. And we talked about negative workplace culture. The problem is, if I'm running a team building workshop, how to build positive teams, people get excited about the ideas, but a lot of people will also say, I want to build a positive team. Really, I want to build a positive team. But if I take these ideas back to my workplace, focusing on strengths rather than weaknesses, building engagement, building gratitude in the work team, changing how we do performance reviews, how we recognize performance. If I take these ideas back to my workplace, they're going to push back. They're going to say, no, that's not how we do things around here. Just focus on productivity. And culture is king. If the culture is not supportive of these ideas, you're going to be a boat rocker. You're going to be the one that's pushing against the tide, that's going against the culture. So over the years, I hear that quite a bit. So what I started to think about was, well, what are the ideas for building a positive team where you don't need permission, that won't attract a lot of attention, that won't attract please explain what are you doing. We can't have your team doing something different from the other teams. So the best team building ideas are the ones that occur under the radar, that don't attract attention. So I call it subversive team building. It sounds kind of fun, but it's really just the things that you can do one-on-one in a coaching, positive relationship with your staff that won't attract a lot of attention unless you wanted to.
Yeah, you're right. And it was my policy that instead of creating a scandal and be demanding why this person didn't do this, because my job depends on that, I was patient. I never complained. And I had a very kind of sincere conversation with one person from another department, like IT department, because I was working on some program that was very important for ultrasound. There was ultrasound software program, and I have to evaluate, and we were using in a hospital. And that's why it was very important task for me to say what is working properly, what is not, because the data would go as a patient data and the history and whatever. And I was talking to an IT person, and I said, why it's so difficult to like if you have some kind of problem, to solve the problem with this software, like fix the problem, why it takes so long time and I have to wait, because then I find another problem and I have to wait another week or two, three. And she was looking at me, she said, you have to understand the human factor, she said. Thanks to our work, that we are not kind of like working very fast, we are able to provide our family with food, money, with everything. That's why our entire department is not in a hurry to do everything fast. No, I was shocked. I mean, it's selfish, but at the same time, it was like government paid, like, you know, department, whatever. And if it would be like, say, my business, I probably wouldn't tolerate such kind of ignorance. But I learned a lot because I realized that human factor exists. And for many people, it seems they do a lot, or they do it properly, or they shouldn't do it like I'm expecting from them. That's why I started understanding. So if the project will be over, many people will be left without job in some way. And then I feel guilty. I would feel guilty that I left these people without a job. It's like about movies, about this kind of like internal close or whatever that never, there was like a couple movies and classical like cinematography, how people were creating something like internal, right? And how actually many other people were suffering because they were not needed to replace this cloth or something else, fabric, whatever. And that's why it changed my perception of people. And I start kind of, it doesn't mean that I became lazy or whatever. No, it just like I realized people are different. And if something is not coming right away because I expect it comes right away, it's not my fault. And I have to kind of be more patient and tolerate and don't create a scandal, go and complain everywhere, which I never did. And in this way, I was avoiding this creating a toxic environment, and also feel toxicity from other people that I was like creating a scandal, let's say, and trying to teach them how to work, how to live, what to do. Because I also had children, and I was thinking, what happened to me if I lose this job? Or the project, everything will be like over, especially when the COVID showed how dramatically people's life changed because many projects were closed. And my children are adults, you know, they live on their own. But I was thinking, what about these parents who has little kids and they have provide everything and they had to stay at home without payment because all projects were closed, you know, and it was really, really upset moment when I realized that I was lucky to be able to provide everything for my family on time when there was nothing like that, this disaster. So when we talk about toxic environment or negative environment, I know sometimes people are afraid of these bosses like, you know, COEs and etc. And you have separate advices for people who are in charge, who are on the top. And I know you deal with them as well. What would you say? What is important for people who are in charge, avoiding, I would say, avoiding this negative environment with their team? So what is the main, I would say, important message for these people? Because I'm a boss myself as well.
There's a very old idea in organizational psychology called theory X and theory Y. And theory X is the idea that people can't be trusted. People are basically lazy. And if you don't watch what people do, if you don't micromanage, people will not do the work. And work is basically tedious And the only way people will do their tedious job is if you watch them and make them. And that's traditional theory X, crack the whip type of management thinking. And there are plenty of dinosaur managers that still think that way, even though there's no evidence to support it. Whereas the theory Y is the idea that if you empower people, if you support and resource people, people want to do well at work. No one wants to be the weak link in a team. No one wants to be the salesperson with the poor sales figures. No one wants to drag their feet. So if you resource people, people want to work. So that's a different philosophy to management. So I guess my message to supervisors is trust that people will do the work well if you do certain things, if you coach them towards doing certain things. So break free of this traditional rigid thinking of being a micromanager and start coaching to people's strengths rather than trying to fix their weaknesses.
It's true.
Think of a sporting team. An international sport that everyone would know would be, I want to say cricket because I'm Australian. I think of basketball. Everyone knows basketball. You put your attacking players in attacking goals. You put your defensive players at goal defense. The faster players, the ones that run fast, you put them in the wings where they can use their pace in the open spaces. You deploy people according to their strengths. So you have a knowledge of people's strengths and you exploit their strengths. And I'm using the word exploit in a good way because we all want to be treated that way. I want to be treated that way. If someone is managing me, I want them to know what I bring. I want them to celebrate what I bring and to make the best use of it rather than having me do something that I'm not really suited for. So a lot of people feel like a square peg in a round hole, doing something they're not really well suited for, something that doesn't require their strengths. If you match people according to their strengths to the task, then people experience more flow, high level engagement. Then people enjoy coming to work. They enjoy being appreciated for their strengths, and you have a more positive team just with that shift in philosophy. So my message is trust the process.
I agree with you because I've been a boss, a supervisor for many years, like different jobs. And sometimes people choose me to be the boss. Sometimes I was a boss because it came from a top. But it doesn't matter. Even now when I have my own company and I hired some people from time to time, I found, first of all, people don't like to leave me. I mean, if they leave, it's a very serious reason. Or because, like, not just that I'm pushing them away or whatever. But whenever I found, first of all, that I had no experience hiring people, because I had a lot, like you said, from other people, even close friend, or don't trust people because they're gonna use you. You're too soft, you're too kind, you try to help everyone. And honestly speaking, I made my own kind of like approach hiring, like looking for candidates. Even we have a lot of candidates, but I always ask about the strengths. I said, what kind of strengths do you have? I never ask about weaknesses because I don't like when I start digging in something negative. And some in the recruitment companies or whatever, people like they like to, or tell me what your weak side. I don't like this because I want to know what is the strong side, what I can have it from the strong side. And then I said, what are your strengths? And then I said, feel free to tell me. And then I usually ask, are you willing to learn more? Are you willing to progress? What are your dreams? Are you going to work for me all the time? Or maybe you dream something to have your own company or own business. So please tell me. So then I can understand like what the person wants from life. Even they could change their interests and desires, doesn't matter. But also, this is two important things: the strengths and willing to learn. That's why I say, if you want to learn and you think you're strong in this and you want to learn more, I would willing to help you, because that's why I start paying some courses for my employees, like, training courses, because I wanted them to be in the progress. And I said, nothing wrong if you create your own company, or if you open your own business and start working like aside. I just need you to do the job you're supposed to do for me because that's why I'm paying you. But your progress is important for me. I didn't want you to see and regret, like be not in progress, but in regression and kind of be unhappy because you never achieved what you wanted to achieve. And they learn from me a lot. And that's why I'm happy because all of them have own businesses, like small one, doesn't matter, but still they work with me because they have the duties, they know what to do. And always I'm listening to the advice because it's young generation, you know more. I could be behind. It's not my duty to learn everything in marketing, in targeting, in social media, whatever, like name it, right? Even management. I said, so I need to learn from you, what you learn, what you would like to learn, like what you had something. And I found I created a good team because I'm part of this team and I trust these people. Doesn't matter what other people say. I trust them. And if somebody tries that, oh, you know, I said, I started almost from scratch with these people. I know who they are and they know what they can do. And that's why I respect them. And we went through difficult like moments in our like cooperation and work. But I said, I know I have my own opinion. And usually what also I found, like to be a boss, you have to put aside everyone who's trying to teach you how to manage your company, how to manage your business, right? Because it's kind of ridiculous to tell. It's people like even my friend or expert tells me whom I should hire or actually fire. That's like I said, this is my business. This is my business. I'm making money in this, but not you. And that's like I usually like I very strong when somebody's trying to push me and say, oh, you know, you shouldn't know this, you shouldn't do this. I say, no, no. If you want to be a boss, create your own company, hire your own people, manage this business, manage your team, and then deal with your team, but not with my people. And
It's amazing. We don't talk enough about recruitment and hiring people because if you want to build a positive team, you would think the first step is to hire positive people. And if
yes,
you ask
that's
even
right.
HR people, experienced managers, if you ask a room full of HR professionals, what is the most important thing to look for when you're hiring people? You will start an argument. I know because I do this quite often. If you want to put a cat among the pigeons, that is a
Yeah.
very controversial question to ask a room full of professional people, managers, human resource people. What is the most important thing to look for? And there is no agreement. And that's crazy because we know what to look for. Amy Rezeninsky at Yale School of Business has done fascinating research at West Point Officer Cadet Training in one of those West Point Academy. And they looked at to the extent to which candidates for officer training had intrinsic internal motivation, that they believed in what they were doing. They were born to do this kind of work. They believed in the military code and they wanted to do this with their life. That's intrinsic motivation compared to other people that had very strong external motivation, like this is good for my career, this is a family tradition, I'm going to get paid for this, I'm doing it for the money. Those external motivations can be quite strong, but over years of hard training and discipline, the externally motivated people are the ones that drop out. When you're really working hard and putting in 100% effort, it helps if you really believe this is what I want to do with my life. This matters to me. This is meaningful. So meaning and purpose turns out to be a great driver of employee engagement. Therefore, in the real world, when you're interviewing people to join your team, the most important question you can ask people is what attracted you to apply for this job?
Mm-hmm.
For many people, that's just an icebreaker question. It's just a casual, it's not an icebreaker question. That is the most important thing you can ask people because the answer they give you will reveal to you whether they are internally or externally motivated for that job. And if they can tell you a really good story of their journey towards wanting to do this work, if it really matters to them, if it's meaningful to them, that's the person you want. They will be loyal, they will show excellence, they will be resilient under pressure.
Yeah.
The evidence is
So,
pretty good.
yes, that's why I'm
But the
telling
trouble is,
everyone.
if it's a stepping stone to something else, or that they need it for the pay or the money, they might be very good at their job, but their heart isn't in it in the same way.
Yes, that's why I'm telling everyone that my team is made of unique people, unique in their way, and that's why makes me happy, because whenever I hear from someone, oh, I would like to be like you, I said, no, you didn't know my story. You didn't know how I went, like, to become who I am, like, through what difficulties in my life. And you didn't need to copy me, because I don't need a clone. I just want you to learn from me, like, and learn with me. And this would be the right answer. So when somebody wants to copy me, I said, you're a failure right away. But I'm learning from different people. Even today, I'm learning from you. Doesn't matter how much I know, but you're specialist in your area. So I'm learning something from you. I'm learning every day. I'm learning always something, right? And that's for me important, because I'm learning with you. I'm learning from you. I don't want to be like you or copy of you or whatever. And that's why I'm telling everyone who wants to work with me or with whom I would like to work, you have to be unique. You have to understand you are unique. That's why the most important. Even if you work for me or even if you don't work for me, it doesn't matter. You're always a unique person. And then if you understand that you're unique, it would be much more easy to build relationship with everyone, because I'm not talking about unique, like, like narcissistic or whatever, and number one, whatever. No, it's just like controlled, unique, like feelings that you're just unique, like everyone unique, but it doesn't mean that they have to show everyone that you're not like everyone, right? And by the way, when we're talking about trust, I know that people are afraid of control, especially from bosses and chefs. What would you advise, like how we control people, and also how we shouldn't afraid of control what we're doing, like how we should react if we notice that we are controlled in some way? What about this control issue?
Another example of trusting the process is people have heard about job crafting. So how do you implement that? How do you cede control? How do you give away control as a manager to your team? And job crafting is the observation that most people will do some parts of their job in their own special way. They'll do it on their own terms. And that's good, because they're experiencing more flow and engagement when they're doing it their way. And they're probably a lot more productive when they're doing it on their own terms. So if we trust that process a little bit more, one of the conversations I would have with a team is I would say to them, you are the expert in how to do your job. You know how to do your job better than anyone else. You know your job better than I know your job, and you are the expert. So I'm open to your ideas as to how you can do your job more efficiently, more effectively, more creatively. And if you come back to me with a suggestion of how you can do it with more flexibility, I'm open to hearing about that, and probably I'll be able to support that. But my job as manager is to make sure you do your job. So the job has to get done, the work has to get done, but the how to, I'm going to give back to you. And when you give employees control over how they do their job, we don't throw common sense out the window. It has to be done with safety and with all respect of occupational health and safety rules and so on. But with respect to those basic broad parameters, how you do your job is up to you. And we know from the evidence, the Whitehall study, workplace flexibility, job crafting, people are happier, more creative, and a lot more productive and more loyal when they have more control over how they get it done. So I'm responsible for making sure that it gets done. I'm going to give back to you control over how it gets done. And that kind of relationship, that flexibility in the workplace is a great predictor of team success. And again, it's something that can be done under the radar. We don't have to talk about it outside of our team, but inside our team, my philosophy is to grant or cede more control back to you individual people.
And if something doesn't work, then it's better to leave the job or fire the person who doesn't do anything to improve like,
The
improve.
worst thing that could happen is one individual might say, well, I quite like doing it by the rules. I'm not a very creative person. I'm not going to change what I'm doing. And that's fine. That's fine. But you're not going to offend people by saying you are the expert in how you do your job. And I respect any ideas you might have for doing it better or doing it differently. But that's not going to offend anyone, but it will empower most people.
It's usually when I start recording the podcast, I usually say to my guests, rule number one, there is no rule. There is no rules. So I want you to feel comfortable and say whatever you want to say. So everybody's laughing because, like, how come no rules? Like, I'm in control of this podcast. I recording, right? I said that's the point. I want you to feel comfortable. So there's no rules. If you joke, if you laugh, it's wonderful because it means we have wonderful relations and we understand each other. That's why I'm thanking you. Thank you for this wonderful podcast. Our time is coming to the end, and I forgot to tell everyone that more information about my guest, Brad Desmond from Australia, you'll find in the information about the video. Just scroll down and you'll find the link to his book and also more information. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, especially podcast channel. And don't forget to like this podcast, because what we do with pleasure to help you, right? We want people to know more, especially about positive psychology, and have a happy life, happy work, happy life, happy job, everything, and happy family, whatever we can make happy with our knowledge and experience. Thank you, Brad, for coming to this podcast.
Well, I just had a great day, and wonderful to talk with you today.
Thank you. So bye-bye.
Ciao.